first generation to grow up fully immersed in digital technology. The way they consume data, information, that sort of thing is very different from other generations. Really adept at using social media platforms. They prioritize, again, this is the research that we're sharing, is that generation prioritizes meaningful work aligned with social justice, climate action, and equity. And certainly from a Great Place to Work perspective, this is something that we've seen. Financially cautious due to economic instability, student debt concerns, often seeking practical paths and flexible work. And that's something else as well. Gen Z values flexibility, such as remote work, adaptable schedules, clear development opportunities, modern technology integration, empathetic leadership, and inclusive culture. So that's what we're really going to be talking about with our three guests today, and what they're seeing in the workplace right now from this generation. So with that, I'm going to ask if I could have my panelists introduce themselves. Linda, I'll start with you. If you could just do an introduction, that would be great.
Sure.
Thanks.
Well, thank you so much, Anne. And, it's a pleasure and wonderful to be here today. So thank you very much. As Anne mentioned, my name is Linda. I go by the pronouns she, her, and I'm the global head of talent acquisition for Nokia. I manage corporate functions as well as the internal, talent acquisition team here for the Americas. Previously to that, I also ran the early careers program for Canada and was also the acting head for the early careers program for Americas for a short period of time there. And I would say Gen Zs or Gen Zs is one of my passions. I think there's been so much that has happened over the last several years that there is, great opportunities ahead of us. And, the program that I ran for Nokia, we almost tripled the size of our student program in Canada, specifically out of our Ottawa office. And so I work out of the Ottawa city here. And I'm happy to share, some feedback and insights with everyone today. So thank you very much for having me in.
I will ask Shreya to introduce yourself if you don't mind.
Sure. Thanks, Anne, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shreya, and I'm part of talent acquisition team at Thomson Reuters. I'm leading the product recruiting function for North America, as well as I'm also handling campus programs for North America at TR. I've spent the last 12 plus years helping to hire and grow talent across tech and product, and I get to see up close how each generation is reshaping what work looks like today. At TR, we are combining human expertise with technology and AI to serve professionals around the world, and Gen Z is a big part of how we are doing that. Around 7 to 8% of our total workforce in Canada is Gen Z or Gen Z, and their expectation around hybrid work, continuous learning, and meaningful careers are pushing us as employers to rethink how we attract, develop, and retain great people. I'm particularly passionate about how AI, hybrid work models, and strong learning and development programs can create workplaces where Gen Z can really thrive. I'm happy to be part of this panel and looking forward to sharing what we are seeing in our hiring and talent strategies at TR, and also learning from the other panelists in this group as well. So thank you for inviting me.
Great, thank you. And Alex, tell us about what you do at Indeed.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Morning, afternoon, wherever you are in Canada. Happy to be on this panel today. So my name is Alexandra Tillo. I've been at Indeed for 9 years. I'm the senior talent marketing consultant there. So what I do is I take care of everything that's thought leadership surrounding human resources and talent acquisition. I'm working with a lot of companies in the country, sharing knowledge, doing surveys, roundtables, conferences on all those topics. And definitely the topic of today, it's not a new topic because Gen Z is not just the future, it's now like the current, one of the biggest generations that's in the workforce right now. And in the coming years, it's going to surpass millennials in the workforce. And I see companies and having discussion with them, and there's a lot of curiosity behind it, and there's a lot of willingness to put some efforts behind it, because I think that that's a generation that leaders have now to shift a little bit the way they used to work and communicate, and that's not something company are used to do. The previous generation were a bit more, I'll say, adaptable, and now Gen Z is more the generation that's asking leaders of company to adapt. So that's a bit of a shifting there, but I do think there's very positive things that are going to come out of that, like the strength Gen Z can bring to a company and how company can use their talent as well. So very happy to be part of the panel today and just share everything I've learned through, like, as I said, surveys, conversations, and indeed work in Canada.
Excellent, thank you. And I know that the people who are joining us today looking for maybe a few nuggets that they can take back to their workplaces and apply when they're looking at engaging this new generation. So Linda, I'm going to start with you. Kind of a big question, or lots going on, but what do you find that Gen Z is looking for from employers today, and how are leaders adapting? And I think all three of you sort of mentioned that from a leadership perspective, but so talk to us about what you're finding Gen Z is looking for and how maybe your talent attraction and leadership is adapting to that.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, and I think I've been in some other sessions before, and the conversation will probably lead towards this, is that we're in this interesting labor market where we have 4 different generations in the workforce. And for us here at Nokia, one of the biggest key factors was looking at, what's the next upcoming 5-10 years plan. And technical skills for us was a challenge to find in the labor market. And so when we think about future generations, we think about the skills that we need in order to continue the work and innovation that we had to look at how are we going to find the skill sets? And really what came about was that, with the intermediate and senior skill set, it's very hard to find. And then Gen Zs have this digital, they grew up in this digital work area or personal life. And so they come in with a different type of mindset and innovation. And so, when we had to look at how do we attract the Gen Zs into our organization, there's a few things that are I've noticed anyways, very differently than maybe some other generations, our predecessors, one is impact. There's a huge focus in terms of impact and values that are aligned to the Gen Zs. And so you have to look at your company and what you kind of stand for. So if, you kind of mentioned in your introduction about sustainability, diversity, the work that they're actually doing. I find that this generation, when they look at opportunities, they're looking to say, okay, are they doing meaningful work? Does it align with their own intrinsic values, right? Is it a company that is authentic and real in terms of the work that they're doing? So one of our selling features is that, we have some really cool projects. And so for those who you don't know, we don't manufacture cell phones anymore. One of our things is, 5G, for example, and connectivity. And so, for a software developer, for our students, they can come in and one line of code could impact whether or not we can connect with another across the world. And so if you think about that and the impact that that person is coming in on that scale is, quite unique in that sense, right? And so impact values is aligned. And so they're looking for companies that kind of go along with that. Another one would be flexibility and well-being. So, I think, COVID really kind of expedited that greatly. And so when you think about, when you are going to work, the expectation levels are quite different than maybe some of our previous generations or even my generation, for example, right? So, working from home or hybrid or that remote flexibility of, different work-life balance is super important. Also, and career growth is another one, I would say. Career growth is a big one. And again, it goes back to the impact that they're working. Are they going to be able to have opportunities to really grow within the company or learn new skills? Because not always the path is going to be in a managerial position, right? We always had this mindset back in the day that we wanted to become managers. And actually the statistics say that a lot more of this generation don't necessarily want to become managers. They do want to become more individual contributors or learn and grow different skill sets, right? And so I would say those are the kind of key things this generation is looking for, and employers need to look at that and how they're going to adapt their own values and brand to align with that.
Excellent. Yeah. I heard the same thing recently about Gen Z not necessarily wanting to go into leadership, which is, it really gave me pause because we need people to lead. And so how do we sort of get at that, why that might not be attractive to this generation. So Shreya, I'm going to go over to you. If you could share in just a few things that you're seeing, and maybe we'll just kind of build on this this aspect of leadership, and how are we leading this generation, and potentially how are we leading this generation to want to be leaders? I'll turn that over to you.
Oh, 100%. So I think, in my opinion, Gen Z is reshaping leadership and workplace culture, right? Towards transparency, flexibility, and purpose. Like Linda mentioned, they work for purpose, of course, the compensation, transparency about the salary bands matter to them a lot than what earlier generations used to have. But apart from that, Gen Z is really shifting from command and control to coach and collaborate. That's what I think. They expect leaders who can listen, who can co-create goals. Gen Z really want that control for their own career development. And also, they need leaders who can give frequent, bite-sized feedbacks. I mean, they're not looking out or probably waiting for an yearly performance evaluation at the end of the year, but they are looking out for quarterly feedbacks, every quarter, like in TR, what we do, we train managers in coaching skills. We have actually moved from annual reviews to monthly check-ins because that is what current generation is actually looking out for. And like I was earlier mentioning, they are looking out for radical transparency and trust by default, with open salary bands, clear decision rationales, visible career paths. Linda, again, touch base on that. They're looking out, that what next 5 years would look like them. They might not be interested in the managerial position, but then what individual contributor role would look like for them. So that matters a lot. They really are looking forward to get open pay ranges as per level. They are not hidden anymore from them. And then I think in terms of learning and development, they are also looking out for pragmatic tech adoption, especially AI. AI is not even future, it's current. Everybody is using that. And they are looking out for those organizations, who are actively moving towards it, and the tools that remove drudgery and open creative problem solving time. So I think all in all, the bottom line is Gen Z isn't rejecting work or changing the leadership. They are just redefining how it's led. I think they are looking out for organizations and leaders, especially who can coach, communicate transparently, enable flexibility in terms of hybrid work from anywhere, and invest in growth. I think that kind of sets the culture that attracts Gen Z specifically.
Thank you. Yeah, the transparency piece is certainly something that this generation expects, and it is new, or I'll say new, but it used to be, we don't talk about pay, right? That was the sort of it was one of those things we didn't talk about, but it's absolutely critical. Alex, I'm going to turn it over to you and just tell us what you've been, I know you talk to lots of clients, you run different groups, that sort of thing. So what are you hearing from the network that you're interacting with?
Yeah, so first of all, very aligned to what both Shreya and Linda said. And that's something I'm just going to add up on what they said. Because we do, so I'm on I have a lot of conversation with employers, but indeed we have both sides. So we have the discussion with employers, and we do have discussions with our job seekers as well. So that's with that information that I'm then able to have the discussion with employers. So I'm going to use what I've learned as well from Gen Z directly when we, survey job seekers to transfer that message to organizations. So around the leadership type and what they're looking for in an employer, they both touch on culture. And I think it's fundamental for Gen Z. And I do think they're looking for not like a culture by default that, it's always been like this and let's stick to it. They're really looking towards what we call like culture by design. They will push organization and asking a lot of questions like, why do we have those processes in place? Do we really need to have that, 10th meeting today? What is actually work-life balance? When I see a lot of job description that say work-life balance, but that for that generation, that's an entirely different definition than a previous generation. So they want to know more about it. Like explain to them what you mean by work-life balance. They're really looking for leaders and organizations that have like really leaner processes and a culture of rewarding experimentation. Like they want to be able to try things and be trusted to try new things in the company. They're a very, very creative generation. And so they're looking for a safe space, to experiment and obviously bring a lot to a company because they have that. Everyone touched on it, like digital literacy. And, when they come on board, they're already so comfortable with the technology, previous generation needed time to adapt, but they are like so quick to get on with even tools they've never seen. Like they have that skills. And they're also a generation that wants, and to what I think Shreya just shared, that transparency and that openness on the communication they will call out a company on if they claim they have certain values and then they don't align with their action, they will call them out. So I think there's a ask for leadership to be adaptable and to have leadership develop those skills. Something that stats I'm going to give you that I think resonates a lot with that as well in terms of the morale and how much they're invested in social and what's happening like in the world. There's 61% of Gen Z that believes brand are better positions than government to solve social problems. 61%. Like it's huge. So they really expect leaders to explain really the values and how does it transfer to the work they do. They want to understand why am I doing that job and how do I contribute, not just to the company, but a broader vision. So if as a company you do take position on social and environmental issues, that's something they're really looking to hear from you about, and that will attract them to your company versus another one. So really like a more moral leadership and type of organization.
Wow, that really paints a picture. The research that Indeed has done and that you just shared. So what I'm hearing is around the really transparency. I think the other piece is from a communication perspective is this generation is not looking for, a long email, right? Like that is not going to reach this generation in the workplace. So it's also adapting. I think there's so many different words I'm hearing this year, like adapting, uncertainty, those are the kinds of words that are really that I'm hearing a lot in the press these days. And I want to go now because I know people participating today would really like to go away with some, concrete ideas, just some things that they could maybe implement or, customize for their organization. So Linda, you mentioned earlier, and Shreya, you've also mentioned about, getting out and meeting students, because that's really what we're talking about when we're talking about Gen Z. A lot of them are, it's, they're in post-secondary, or maybe they're just past post-secondary, or maybe they've gone straight from high school into the workforce. So lots of different experiences, but really talking about, this is a new career, right? Like I'm just joining the workforce. So what is somebody just joining the workforce? How do you attract them? How do you reach them? So Linda, I'll stop talking and ask you that question.
No, it's fine. I love this particular question. I'll be honest with you, because, statistically, when I took over this program probably 5 years ago, we had the challenge. We had a little bit of a branding challenge in the sense that everyone still thinks that we manufacture cell phones, like, and so, I mean, some people still do, but, essentially it's, I think that legacy will never go away from us, if I'm being honest, to some degree. One of the things that my team and myself wanted to go out there is get the word out to all of this, new generation that's coming up of the exciting work, the impactful work, the culture in terms of what they would get if they were to come and work for us. So we intentionally went to as many different types of networking events, career fairs, hackathons, as much as possible for the first little while as we launched this community of early careers community within our organization for Canada. And what we did was, and even during COVID times, is that we had workshops, whether it was professional development workshops or more like info sessions. So we had so there's twofold. So we went out to the external, like post-secondary schools, and we told them about all the things that they would get to work on or be part of when they join Nokia, because they're joining an actual community of other early careers professionals. And so I think at one point, one year, my team and my small self, I think it was just like 170 different networking events that we went to in 1 year. And it wasn't only career fairs. Sometimes we went in and I did like career coaching sessions where we talked about things that we look for as employers for resumes, or does a cover letter matter? For example, how do you interview? So things from the industry that really made a huge difference to the students. Because what we were showing is that we're not just here, come and work for us, but we want to invest in you as a student to see you become successful, not only in our organization, but other organizations as well. And so that was probably a huge key differentiator, I believe, in terms of how we put ourselves as a brand, is that we did definitely cared about more than just the students, not only working for us, but actually seeing them successful in in their job search or their career. The other aspect, if they were successful in joining us, then we also continued that, where we also held workshops as a community. So every work term, they got to join different workshops about how to be successful in the workplace. Again, we go back to how do you interview? How do you create good cover letter resumes and resumes? How do you apply for jobs even, right? Networking 101, financial literacy. So there was all these different fundamental things that the next generation got to learn from our organization. And then from a branding perspective, we were going out there, and I'll give you like statistics in the sense that like every 3 to 4 months, when we first started this, it was maybe 3,000 applicants for maybe just, shy of about 70 positions to 100 positions, 100 to 150 positions. And we had about 3,000 applicants. After a year of that, we ended up having, it was overwhelming, actually, the amount of applicants. So every 3 to 4 months, we ended up having 25,000 applications for similarly 100 to 125 or 150 positions that were posted every 4 months. And so that was insane in the sense of like, we were able to show that branding and that awareness and that attraction to us. And so I think it appealed to that generation. It helped our organization. Now we had the challenge of now trying to find throughout the many applications, it got too competitive in a way, to be honest with you. But in that sense, if you're an organization who's just starting out and figure out how to attract that next generation, these are prime examples of what happened and how we did it. And we're able to kind of create a really great program and continue that program as we move through, right? So, yeah.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that. And something I heard from you is you're really demonstrating to, potential employees and just the community in general that we care about you. Whether you come and work for us or you don't come and work for us, we care about you as individuals and that you are successful in finding the job that works for you. And I think that it really is a differentiator for organizations, right? Like, what is that impact outside of, I'll say, the sort of four walls, if you will, of your organization? How about TR, Shreya? Some of the initiatives or anything that you want to share with people joining us today?
No, happy to share. We have like multiple EVP or employer brand things going around at TR globally, and also focusing on Canada. Like TR, as an organization, we lead into purpose, flexibility, growth, inclusion, and tech forward learning. A few things like Gen Z values consistently, and then we activate all these values through our early career program and employee communities. What that actually looks like in practice is we have purpose-led storytelling here. Here we frame careers around a clear purpose. I think Alex was talking to us that this generation is actually looking out for purpose, and we actually capture that purpose. We frame career around clear purpose, we inform the way forward, we impact themes like defending truth, modernizing institutions, and combating misinformation. And this message actually resonates with Gen Z's desire for socially meaningful work, which we actually do at TR as well. Like Nokia, we also have an earlier career on-ramps and communities where we have structured internship program with hackathons and fireside chats with executives and leadership team throughout the year. And it's a ask me anything session. Even if we have sessions with our CEO, Mr. Steve Hasker, on intern day, and interns are actually in the same room, where our CEO is. So those kind of sessions, kind of give Gen Z a confidence that yes, TR as an organization is really investing in them. And we also have BRGs, which is Business Resource Group. We have a very solid employee-led early career network that gives Gen Z hands-on projects, peer networking. We have and mentorship opportunities as well. Apart from that, we also sell our roles to Gen Z with this flexible hybrid work and time autonomy. We have Flex My Way benefits at TR, which includes work from anywhere, caregiver PTO, enhanced bereavement, and an expanded option to work internationally for some part of the year. And also we have sabbatical program, to add in there. And last thing which I want to mention here is how we are investing in AI for all of our employees. We are our vision is to be AI focused. We have been working with AI, around AI for so many years, but for the last 2-3 years, this impact and this focus has been more. And we have specific learning days in a year where we explicitly highlight AI ML upskilling using our internal AI platform, Open Arena, which kind of matches Gen Z's appetite for continuous development as well. Those are a couple of things which I can share, but yeah, I think these kind of branding things attract Gen Z to be part of TR.
Thank you for that. And I think similar to Nokia in terms of when I think about AI, yes, it's very much how do we use it in the workplace, but it's part of our lives. So if we can, give people training, learning, development opportunities inside, it's only going to benefit them when they in their lives as well, right? So very similar in terms of looking at people as whole people, not just employees. So I picked up on that from both of you. So Alex, over to you. You talk to job seekers, you talk to employers. What are maybe some interesting initiatives that you're hearing about that are attracting and retaining this generation?
I think a lot of things like Linda mentioned, actually, I hear from some of my clients. I had a recent discussion actually with Deloitte and PwC. And I think there are those consistency group, they're doing a phenomenal work. So they took a step back and they did realize a lot of the Gen Z generation that's currently employed, everyone went through COVID, but they went through COVID when they were supposed to start working, right? So when they would have normally learned certain workplace skills and that some norms, they were not in person, they were just in front of their computer. And so they completely missed that opportunity. And again, it has nothing to do with their generation. It's just because that happened. So they some things, there's some gaps there. And companies and I think Linda as well, you mentioned how Nokia were doing all those workshop mentorship. I think that's key. For example, I'll mention Deloitte and PwC I've been working with as well. They have offered specialized training for their Gen Z workers. And it was around building skills, teamwork, even how to give a presentation, some emails etiquettes, because they noticed when they were looking and analyzing some of the emails that were sent that sometimes, there were some languages, barriers, or some ways to express, something within emails that wasn't right there. So they did a workshop around it. And they did also a workshop around face-to-face communications. And that was so well received. And they've seen a giant jump into performance from the Gen Z and then the people that were, welcoming in the companies. So I do think, like Nokia did, everything that's around, we're doing a bit. Yes, it's a bit of a step forward or something companies were not used to do, but we need to keep in mind everything that they went through. And unfortunately, that impacted their early careers, way more than anything else. That's, already had so many years of experience. So definitely everything that's around mentorship, coaching, is so well received. And, people will be thankful. And when you have an employee that's thankful for, that extra workshop you did for them, then, they're more loyal because they appreciate, that you took the time to teach some of those skills they unfortunately didn't have the chance to learn at their entry-level job or like very early in their careers. And for the EVP, because you did ask about around the EVP, again, I'm not building Indeed EVP. I want to be transparent here, but from companies I've been speaking with, and again, to resonate with what Shreya and Linda have said around that digitalization, AI, and everything. From an EVP standpoint, something that really resonates and how to transcribe that in your EVP about the transparency, authenticity. And again, it's from my angle, the piece of advice I would give absolutely everyone on this call, and I feel is a bit lacking when I analyze employer branding online, is employee testimonials. And the reason behind it is they will trust more something said by a current employee and human being than a corporation. So again, it's one thing to say, oh, we're this type of company and we aspire to be this type of company. But how does it actually translate into action? You need an employee or employees, just, to even 30 seconds video, a minute video, just to explain a bit, a day in a life, what it is to do my job. It doesn't need to be rainbow and butterflies because, again, they will see right through it. It's better to be authentic. It's okay to, if it's someone that has a manual labor job, have them in, the way they usually work on their day-to-day. Don't glamorize it. This is what they want to see. They need something that's very relatable. So strongly encouraged to leverage employee testimonials. And again, to what Shreya was saying, just keeping in mind as well how agile they are with technology. So make sure that everything, your career site, your jobs, every piece of employer branding you have out there is mobile optimized. This is extremely important because they do everything fast. You need to be quick. You need to be responsive. It needs to be snappy to the point. Like they will swipe right or left. I don't know what's that app, what it is, but you know what I mean. They will be very quick. This is glitchy. Moving on to another company. If already your career site on mobile is glitchy, that's a bad perception and it will stick with them. So just make sure mobile optimized is the second recommendation after employer testimonials.
Wow, that is such great insight and such great advice. I know myself, if I'm doing any sort of research, right? Like we're just impatient.
Oh, yeah.
This, the way we consume is just so fast now. We become impatient. I did want to sort of jump on something you said as well, and just acknowledge that we need to sort of appreciate the gap that was created with COVID. And I think you made a really good point, Alex. Like we can't just be like back to the before times or go back to normal, right? Like normal has changed. And for this generation, they did miss out on some key opportunities to really, you just talked about like FaceTime, being face to face with somebody, right? Like, and basic, well, what we would call sort of basic office or work, but it's not basic, right? That's my bias. And I think that's really critical for leaders to recognize too. We've got about, I don't know, 6 or 7 minutes left. Linda, I want to go back to you. And just from a leader perspective, you work with leaders, you work with hiring managers, who are looking for talent. So what are some of the conversations you're having with them? What are some of the obstacles, or what is some of the education that you have to give to leaders around, hiring the next generation?
Yeah, actually, so I'm just going to go back one step to what you said and Alexander said in terms of the water cooler effect. And so we call it the water cooler because, the generation that we're kind of working with now either started working in COVID times or have the after effects of COVID times, right? And so, and I think that was what we recognize as an employer, is that they didn't get those natural mentorships or opportunities to learn indirectly from those candid walking through the hallways or sitting beside somebody in the office space or going to a cafeteria or whatever it may be, right? And so I think that's why we had to flip a little bit in terms of the intention of how we actually create those moments. Because again, when we look about impact, we look about opportunities for growth, we look about, mentorships and those types of things, career growth that this generation is looking for. It's not easy because now everybody's sitting behind their desk at home in somewhere else. And for us as a global company, that was always something that was going to be a challenge because we have individuals all over the world at different time zones. And so the intentionality had to be there to create those water cooler types of conversations and mentorships. And so that is something that I would say, to tie it back to the leadership aspect, is that is something that has been a challenge. I won't lie that it's still conversationally happening today with us. How do we, create inclusion for 4 generations in 4 different types of work life and expectations in our environment? And then given for us as our global company, we have different cultural differences, we have different time zones, we have different types of skill sets. And so it's a challenge, I won't lie, in terms of that, right? And so what we do is, from a leadership perspective, for example, like new managers, we launched a program for new managers to understand and lead with something called lead principles, right? And so there are certain empathetic skills in terms of leadership that we really, really reintroduce into leaderships or train our new leaders to have some of these, we call them lead principles, to work with 4 different generations, right? And be empathetic and understand how different generations have different expectations and needs. It's almost a very tailored experience that we kind of have to manage. It's not easy, absolutely. And there's no, I would say there's no quick, snap of a finger solution to one size fits all. I'll be very transparent from that perspective, but we are giving our leadership some tools in order to understand how to manage the different generations, right? And then 2 is that we have, those certain assessment plans and it's like performance reviews and stuff like that, and just have to be more hands-on and more mentorship and actually to try to show some of our like high level, like our executive leadership, that we have to kind of lead by example, right? And this is really critical because this next generation, if we don't, put a lot of focus on it, 5-10 years from now, we're going to have some challenges. And to see the value of diversity into an organization and the innovation that it breeds and it fosters, right? And it's going to be not only win for the organization culturally, but also from a, gross profit margin, all those kinds of things. And, sometimes tying like gross profit margins to like innovation really makes a difference in terms of focusing, and helping the leaders see the value of diversity and then working, with Gen Zs or Gen Zs, right? So.
Thank you. And Shreya, from a leader development perspective, you did mention that part of what TR does is around coaching Gen Z. So how do you equip your leaders to be coaches, and what else does your organization do?
Yeah, I mean, I think in my opinion, the common missteps when leaders or organization communicate with Gen Z is like, we sometimes like, as organizations, we use corporate vagueness and buzzwords like, dynamic environment, competitive core, fast paced, like, in our job descriptions as well. So I think that's really not Gen Z's looking out for. Like, they're really, really looking out for concrete statements. They're looking out for openness, transparency, like I mentioned before. They're looking out for knowing the salary bands, what's the team mission is, what the success metrics are, what is the tech stack, and what is like, day-to-day reality would look like if they'll join TR. So that's how like, Gen Z is more like, kind of wired in their brain right now. And also like, they're also not looking out for one-way broadcasting or announcement. Like, instead they're looking out for dialogue. If they are joining us, they're looking out for quick AMAs with leadership, even with executives, like, in the organization. They are looking out for pulse surveys wherein they can share their real and honest feedback. They are looking out for comment-enabled posts internally as well as externally. And they really respond visibly to top questions, right? And also, like, I have seen, like, what really has not been working with Gen Z and what we really are improving at TR, and we have been successful in doing that, is like, slow, like not sending slow, long, and dense messages to to Gen Zs. Like Alex was mentioned, like, mobile first behavior is what they are looking out for. They are not looking out for long meetings for simple updates. If that update can be done on a simple Teams chat, that will be good for them. They really are not interested in getting from one meeting to another meeting. It's like TLDR, like, too long, didn't read. So that's something like, which they are right now really not interested in. And also, like, one thing which is really interesting, like, they are also like, want to get away from this expectation of always on, like, always replying to text, like, as soon as they're receiving on Teams chat, or always replying to that email on time. They have set their time, like, when they are working, and they're very strict and set about it. So I think we at TR, like, we are coaching our managers to, like, engage with Gen Zs accordingly. They should not have expectations of, like, responding to their question immediately if it is out of office hours. So those are a couple of things, like, which TR is doing to coach, mentor managers and leaders so that, like, they can engage Gen Z effectively.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I think we're out of time. Alex, I'm going to leave the final words to you. Just again, you work with organizations, you work with leaders, you work with the job seekers. So any tips or anything for leaders in onboarding or recruiting, retaining this generation?
Yeah, thank you. I do think, as to what Shreya, I'm just going to extend to what she says, like the communication is very different, and the leadership that we have in place right now is from a different generation. And I feel that it's sometimes where the issue is and the frustration is coming from. And it's normal, okay? Again, we acknowledge it's very difficult. Linda did say that it's the first time that happened, all those generations. So again, be patient with Gen Z, be patient with yourself as well. Everybody's learning. learning from everything, just having that open line of communication, and just making sure that if there's some frustration, that's generation, again, because of the purpose, because of that authenticity, have a one-on-one discussion with them, like avoid to call them out in group settings. I've had discussion, just to give an example before closing out, but clients who we are talking about Gen Z, and they were like, I think they're disengaged, you know, they don't turn their camera on during meetings. And I'm like, have you asked, like, before making that conclusion that they're disengaged? And the reason I want to bring it up is because it's actually a Deloitte survey. More than half of Gen Z workers live paycheck to paycheck right now. And a lot of them, I don't have the percentage, but like the vast majority live with housemates. So they don't necessarily have that desk. Maybe they're in their bedroom. They don't necessarily, you know, want to have their laptops, show that they have the laptops on their laps, you know. So it's just like being sure not call them out, like where your camera is off during the meeting, but have that respect. And they'll really be, if they feel respected, they will be very respectful in return. That's a generation that really appreciates that, and that will give you by 2 times what you gave them. So just they are hardworking. To leadership, I just want to say, do not make assumption. It's a very different generation. Older generation, we were just, you know, giving them a task and they were executing. It needs to be communicated in a different way, the purpose behind it. And trust me, they'll give it back to you 10 times more. So we were talking about coaching Gen Z with the skills they might be lacking because of that COVID and everything. But to Shreya's point, you need to think about your leaders, and they need to be coached as well. It's a two-way, it's 100% a two-way communications. It's not an authoritarian type of leadership anymore. It needs to be a bit more flattened out. It doesn't need to be as structural as it was before. So really go with an open mind, and honestly ask them. They'll be very happy to have that communication with you. They're very open to discussion and communicate. So yeah, I want to encourage everyone to do so. And I tried to read a bit the chat as we were going through. I see a lot of participation. I saw a couple of people from that generation participating as well. Really as well appreciated them to jump into that call, because I think it's beneficial for everyone to have those conversations. So thank you so much for putting us all together, and really hope our participants and people attendees appreciated some of the discussion we had today. It's not the end of it, it's just the beginning of it. So very happy.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you to Linda, Alex, Shreya for your insights. The sort of nuggets I'm taking away is around coaching, development, transparency, impact, purpose, community for early career employees, technology, like so many things for employers to think about. And Alex, yeah, great point. Like, we're just getting started, right? So I think we could probably talk a lot longer about this, but I know we only booked 45 minutes. So wanted to thank everybody who participated today. Thank you again to the panelists. This was so fun. Thank you so much. And hopefully we'll have an opportunity to talk about this again. Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.